Here to discuss both of these extremely important stories is CNN political analyst and Washington Post columnist Josh Rogin. He's also the author of Chaos Under Heaven, Trump, Xi, and the Battle for the 21st Century. Josh, thanks so much for being with me.
Great to be with you.
All right, let's start with Ukraine. You've got Ukraine's president making this incredible claim that Russia, a group of Russians and Ukrainians are behind a plot to stage a coup next month, that Ukraine's biggest oligarch, richest man is also involved. What do you make of all this?
Well, it's clear that the mounting pressures, both internal and external, are taking its toll on the Ukrainian government and President Zelensky. Not only is he facing the military threats from Russia, he's facing internal challenges from his own oligarchs. Those are fueled by the pro-Russian forces inside his own system. He's taking it from all sides. They've got an energy crisis, they've got an economic crisis, they've got a political crisis, and they've got a security crisis. And I think the real question and the real reason that he's raising this alarm, in fact, is because the real question is whether or not the West is going to come to his aid, whether or not Europe and the United States, primarily the Biden administration, is going to do what's necessary to bolster Ukrainian security and the integrity of their system and their sovereignty in the face of all these threats. I think it's pretty clear that the Biden administration has been very vague about what it is actually willing to do. And while expressing strong rhetorical support for Zelensky, questions about military assistance, questions about Nord Stream 2, and questions about more economic assistance from the United States remain unanswered.
So do you think that, we have heard this reporting from CNN and elsewhere that the U.S. is considering sending military aid, both advisors and weaponry, to Ukraine. Do you get the sense that the U.S. needs to really ratchet up the tension in order to calm things down?
Well, I mean, that's the debate that's going on internally. I think that they're trying to sort of split the difference. I think they're pursuing a Goldilocks strategy, not too hot, not too cold. We have provided hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid in the United States to Ukraine already this year. Whether or not more would raise tensions or deter the Russians is a matter of debate. It seems to me that, if you're asking my opinion, that yes, more military aid would raise the cost of a military invasion. But to be honest, it's not really a military problem. It's a diplomatic problem. And in my opinion, if the Biden administration really wants to make a difference in Ukraine, it would rejoin the leadership of the international effort to resolve those diplomatic and political differences. And they just don't seem to have the bandwidth or the intention of doing that, frankly.
Josh, I want to move on to China and this visit to Taiwan by these 5 Congress members. And it was a delegation of both Republicans and Democrats. We heard from Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin. She tweeted, "When news of our trip broke yesterday, my office received a blunt message from the Chinese embassy telling me to call off the trip. But just as with other stops, we're here to learn about the region and reaffirm the U.S. commitment to our hosts, the Taiwanese. I'm looking forward to an informative trip." Josh, this isn't the first time that members of Congress have visited Taiwan this year, but it comes at this very important moment. So how notable do you think this trip is?
Right. This is the 3rd lawmaker trip in recent months to Taiwan. The first was a bunch of senators delivering vaccines. Then we had Senator Cornyn and Senator Crapo just a few weeks ago, and now 5 lawmakers. Listen, I think the whole point of regularizing these visits is to show the Chinese government that it doesn't matter if they whine and moan and complain, because American lawmakers and American officials have the right and the duty and the interest of visiting Taiwan. We have an economic relationship. We have a diplomatic, although unofficial diplomatic relationship. There's important industrial ties. And we also support Taiwan's democracy while not actually endorsing their independence or telling them if we're even going to come to their aid if they get attacked. So, yeah, Beijing complains. That's what they do. They complain about everything. They're going to keep complaining. And in my opinion, if we yield to the complaints and stop the visits, well, that just encourages them to complain about everything even more. So I think there's a benefit in these visits, both for the United States, but also for Taiwan. And I think they're going to continue as well. They should.
All right, Josh Rogin, we got to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great holiday weekend.
You too.
A terrible tragedy in the English Channel has led to a major diplomatic rift.